If we don't know the points of performance, how are we supposed to then break that movement down to figure out what should be corrected? Hi guys, welcome back to Jerk Walk Talk. I'm Jace Fernandez. We're here at CrossFit Rife. Today's a heavy deadlift day, and it brought up a good point about how to go about assessing movement and then therefore taking that assessment and then coming up with a correction. I was recently doing a level 2, and we had a doctor in one of the groups, and I was walking him through some drills about going through and assessing movement, and we were doing a seeing drill. And we were having a little bit of trouble looking and finding what was going on. So the question I ask in a lot of those scenarios is this: what are the points of performance of the movement? About whatever it is, the squat, the deadlift, the press, the push press, the jerk, doesn't matter. If we don't know the points of performance, how are we supposed to then break that movement down to figure out what should be corrected? And I was explaining this to this physician, and he said, that makes perfect sense to me. He says, when we do initial assessments on patients, one of the first things they tell us in medical school during the residency is you have to know normal before you can understand abnormal. So when you're looking at movement and you're looking at the squat or the deadlift, and you don't know that in the deadlift that I want to have neutral spine, weight in the heels, good bar path, and constant hip angle on the first pull, how are you supposed to figure out which one of those things should be corrected? Again, it goes back to the very, very simple concept of, and this happens a lot in the level 2 setting, when coaches are going through coaching small groups or doing correcting drills or even seeing drills. They struggle immensely because they just don't have those points of performance ready at the tip of the tongue and just know them when they're looking at movement. They know that in a squat that they want the heels roughly shoulder width apart, toes turned out slightly, that the crease hip needs to be below the knee. We want a neutral spine, good line of action, all those things. Like, those are things that as a coach, if we struggle just rattling those things off, that is where we find a sticking point when we're looking at movement and assessing it. So when you're thinking about, like, am I doing a good job or am I struggling trying to assess movement, then just ask yourself, do you know what normal is? Do you know what that movement should look like when done perfectly? Can you name those points of performance? Like, can you write down a list right now? If you can't, then it's going to be very difficult for you to take an athlete who's moving, break that movement down, because in order for me to find something that's wrong, I have to know what's right first. So I have all of our coaches do this. They need to know what the points of performance are. They need to know what the progressions are. You have to start there. If you don't know those basic things, it is going to be virtually impossible for you to have any sort of effective coaching by looking at movement, particularly done at speed. Like, today's a deadlift day. It's one of those things where, like, if you don't know some things that should be happening on the deadlift over there, like, how are you supposed to assess that movement and then correct it? Like, you need to know what those things are. So break out the level 1 manual, go through those 9 foundational movements, memorize the points of performance. And here's the tip: most of them are the same. Once you memorize one set of them, there's some small additions as you work your way down those movements. This is going to help you tremendously as a new coach. Memorize those first. That way, when you walk out on the floor and I know that I need to see flat back, weight in the heels, knees tracking the toes, all those things, I know those things are going to be happening. When they're not happening, they're going to be far more obvious to me as a coach. So do yourself a favor. Get your nose back in the book. Write that stuff down, memorize it, test yourself, quiz yourself, have somebody else quiz you. You're going to be far more effective identifying faults or abnormalities in those movements when you step onto the floor. I see this a lot, guys, and the coaches who take this to heart do much, much better than those that don't. So if you like this content, guys, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.